Anybody else?
You have 6 members.
Okay. I see all those beautiful faces. Well, thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Chris, I know you've been asked many times, but I've been thinking about you. How you doing?
You know, we're taking each day as it comes, Jerry. Thank you. Every day is another day. It's just, you know, waves that hit you at times, but those waves are getting a little further apart and they're a little lower. So me and the girls are managing, and we wouldn't have done it without the great support of our friends, family, and especially the community. You guys, the city of Sandy is even more special in my heart today than it was 2 months ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, definitely thinking about you. If there's anything you need, be sure and give us a call.
You got it.
Very well then. We will open this meeting of the City of Sandy Planning Commission. This is Monday, May 24, 2021 at 6:32 on my clock, 6:33. We will begin with a roll call.
Commissioner Carlton,
Present.
Commissioner Lasowski,
Here.
Commissioner McLean Wenzel is excused. Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Hook,
Here.
Commissioner Mayton,
Present.
Chairman Crosby,
Here.
and I'm actually going to do Council Liaison Sheldon.
Here as well, thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you. We have our quorum. We had in our minutes, or in our packet, the draft minutes from the March 29, my birthday, 2021 meeting. Any corrections that need to be noted or changes, additions? If not, we will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of March 29, 2021. All in favor who were present, say, give a thumbs up. 1, 2. Okay, we got, all right. And any abstentions for any absent people? Okay, motion carries. This is the time in each of our meetings when we give opportunity for just citizen communication on non-agenda items. Right now, I don't see anybody in the room, but there may be somebody on phone that Kelly will tell us about. But if you are in the meeting and you would like to speak to the Planning Commission on an item that is not on tonight's agenda, now is the time to do so. And to do so, if you are on Zoom, click the raise hand button and you will be recognized. If you're participating on the telephone, dial *9 and that will raise your hand and wait to be recognized. So we'll just wait a moment to see if anybody's here to speak to us in general.
Yeah, you actually, for the first time since we've been doing this for about 14 months or whatever, it's the first time we don't have any attendees. So the people that you see on your screen are the only people in attendance. So there's nobody to make public comment.
Okay. Who we see is who we get.
That's right.
All right, well, we'll move on to director's report. That was in the packet. Do you have any comments you want to add, Kelly, or do any of the commissioners have questions?
I was going to make it pretty quick tonight. One of the reasons we're not having our regular June meeting is we didn't have any items. At your June 7th meeting, you'll be discussing code updates with the council, and we'll be bringing lots of those to you over the next 6 months. But we weren't prepared to bring anything in June. The other reason is because I won't even be around for the second half of June. So it'd be really hard logistically since I'm the only one in the planning department right now that knows how to run the Zoom webinars. So that's the main two reasons why you don't see a regular June meeting. So the only meeting in June will be the work session with council, and then we'll go back to having the July 26th meeting and August 23rd meeting. And then we'll have a lot of meetings continuing through the rest of the year. The only other thing I did want to bring up is that I have some additional information on Creekside or Cedar Creek Heights, the subdivision that was known as the Views, that I was compiling an email earlier today. And I'm going to send that out tomorrow morning to the council. If the planning commission would like, I could also send that to all of you. That's just kind of a further in-depth analysis and kind of update on what's going on with that particular application. If it does get appealed and comes before you, you would just have to declare it. Although it is staff giving you the updates, so I don't think there's much to really declare. So I'll probably send that to you as well tomorrow, unless you have any objections to that. I'll send it to you and council. It just gives you some more information than what my director's report had. And then the only other thing I had is I was hoping that we could just take a moment of silence. Our DLCD representative, Jennifer Donnelly, who's been the representative for Sandy, I think, for the last 16 years. And I've worked with her pretty closely at the state of Oregon for the last 10 since I worked in Sandy. She passed unexpectedly on Saturday. She's come before you numerous times over the years. I believe she was only 52 years old, so it's very tragic and sudden. So I was just hoping we could take a moment of silence for her.
Will do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Too often we work with people like her that don't work for our agency, but we work with them very closely. And it kind of hit me a little bit hard this morning just because I was not expecting to receive that information. So with that, that concludes my director's report. Unless anybody has any specific questions, I can field them at this time.
I just had a quick one. You in your report, you call the Cedar Creek one, the Plan B, I guess, the Views Plan B, which is, I think, something you folks are aware of, but to me, I knew it as upper and lower. Just in maybe one quick sentence is, what is Plan B?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. That's kind of a typo. I probably should just put the Views. So there was the Views, which ultimately got denied by city council. And then they actually came before us with a pre-app called Plan B. So it's a little confusing because the only people that probably knew it as Plan B were internal city staff. So my apologies on that.
So is it basically the whole upper and lower just in a new app? Okay.
It's just a straight up SFR subdivision. I do believe they're still proceeding with their LUBA appeal on the Views PD concurrently with this application as well. And so I think if they were to somehow win at LUBA, which I have no idea if they will or not, I think they would go with the Views. If they don't win, which I think that's probably what will happen, but I don't know that for a fact, then they would proceed with this new application they're applying for, I believe.
Well, it'd be exciting to see it.
Okay, any other comments for Kelly on his report or any other general discussion item? Very good. We will move into, there's no old business tonight. The new business is we have one public hearing. And I will open that public hearing at 7:40. And this is file 21-005, a variance, otherwise known as Leslie Pole Barn. Call for any abstentions from the hearing body. Nothing seen. Any conflicts of interest from anybody? I see nothing. Any ex parte contact to declare? Well, I would normally give any challenges to the member of the hearing body by the audience, but we'll still go through with it. Testimony will be done the normal way as before. If you're on Zoom, click the raise hand button, wait to be recognized. If you're on the phone, it's *9. That will effectively raise your hand. Okay, if you testify, you must raise all issues you wish to address at this hearing. If your issue is not raised at this hearing, you may not be able to raise it later in any appeal. Your comments should state why the application should or should not be approved, or include your proposed modifications you believe are necessary for approval according to the standards. If you do not raise specific issues at the final evidentiary hearing or by close of the record, or fail to provide statements or evidence to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal the decision to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that particular issue. Any party may request that the hearing be continued to a later date, or that the record remain open after the hearing is closed. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. With that, we'll turn it over to Shelley for staff report.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen. So the subject property is out on Kelso Road. I have a couple of things highlighted here. The property outlined in red is the subject site that the applicant is proposing to put the pole barn on. But the properties in blue are also owned by the applicant, and that's pertinent. I'll explain why in a second. So the request is to build a pole barn on the subject site, which was would otherwise be a type 2 application, so up to an administrative decision based on staff discretion. But the applicant is requesting a type 3 special variance. And that variance relates to the orientation of the barn on the site. So typically, on this slide, you can see the primary dwelling unit is up here in the corner. Typically, we require that any accessory structure be built behind a home. But in this case, that's not possible, given how much space there is behind the home on the lot. So the applicant previously submitted an application for a property line adjustment that would move the current property line here south to accommodate for building the pole barn, which is here in blue, on the same property as the home. So the variance that's being requested is allowing that pole barn to be built in front of the primary structure. And again, that lot line adjustment application was already submitted and approved by staff. So when we reviewed the code requirements for this pole barn, we found that it met all of the code requirements for accessory structures, including being the correct size, so 1,200 square feet. There are no other accessory structures on the lot. It's under 16 feet in height. All of the setbacks are met. The architectural requirements are met. Some tree removal will be required, but the applicant is planning on doing that in a future application. So he is planning on removing some trees, but that will be in a later application. He just wanted to make sure that this variance could be approved before he went forward with the tree removal application. So something important to remember is that all of that information, those specifications and code requirements for an accessory structure, would otherwise be a type 2. And those are things that staff has reviewed, and you can find all of those details in the staff report. What Planning Commission needs to decide on tonight is that type 3 special variance. So if it is appropriate for the accessory structure to be in front of the home on this property. So in the Development Code, Chapter 17, Section 17.66.80, that is the chapter on adjustments and variances. There are 3 criteria in that chapter that allow for a variance to be granted. Staff has found that this particular criteria, which we have quoted here, is met. And this includes 3, I guess you could call them sub-criteria. 1, the intent and purpose of the regulations and of the provisions to be waived will not be violated. 2, it will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare. And 3, it will not be injurious to other property. So based on our analysis, staff has found that the intent and the purpose of the regulation saying that an accessory structure needs to be behind a home is not being violated. That's in the code in order to ensure that, you don't see an accessory structure from the street, that it's not, the primary use of the lot. And because of the size of the lot and the layout and how far setback it is from Kelso Road, we've determined that that's not an issue in this case. Additionally, because of the public notice process, no property owners reached out to us to tell us that it would be detrimental to their property or to their welfare. In fact, we received 2 comments from the applicant's neighbors supporting the project. So there's no reason to believe that this violates the intent of the code, nor is it detrimental to public welfare or surrounding property. So our staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission approve this type 3 special variance.
Thank you. Any questions of staff right now? Okay, we will move forward to the applicant's presentation. I see Bill's in the room. Before you speak, state your name and your address for the record. The floor is yours.
Bill Leslie. I live at 37625 Southeast Kelso Road in Sandy. My wife and I have lived here for 30 years. I suppose a point of order for you, Jerry. You opened the meeting at 7:40. It was actually 6:40. I don't know if you're in another time zone or what. You might want to amend the record.
I'm sure the secretary will catch that one.
I just wanted you to know I was hanging on every word. As I said, we've lived here for a long time. We've owned the property that's in front of us, between us and Kelso Road, for probably 15 or 20 years. One dream we've always had is to have a place where we could keep a couple of our cars in slightly better quarters. You were talking about the parade. We own a 1943 Ford Army Jeep, World War II, and I'd love to have a place to keep that out of the rain. And then one end of the shop will be reserved for wood shop projects. Having both of the properties and being able to do a lot line adjustment makes this fairly simple. We get to preserve the wonderful view we have out our front yard, but we are literally hundreds of feet away from Kelso Road. Our neighbors, whom we know all of them pretty well, fully support the project. There was a mention of removing some trees. It's actually not in the site where the building's going to go, but they're right next to it, and they drop enormous limbs on top of enormous limbs on top of it. So to prevent them from damaging the roof of it, we'll remove a few. I think if we remove 5 or 6 trees from this property, we'll probably have 30 or more trees that meet the city's requirement for retention, which is, I think, 11 inches DBH. And we love our trees. In fact, in the past 4 or 5 weeks, we've planted, I think, 60 or 70 Doug firs on our property. We have no intent whatsoever of destroying the way it looks and feels. And even without a requirement, we're going out of our way to plant more trees. It's an exciting time for us to finally be able to do something. I retired a couple of years ago, and we're hopeful it gets approved. And we think we've met all the criteria for the Planning Commission to support it. In fact, I suspect that if we were looking at the detailed elements on the building before we're done, we'll meet several more criteria that the city encourages to make it an attractive building for the community.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Jerry, I just wanted to note that, yes, Mr. Leslie caught the error and I've already corrected it in the minutes. So
I'm still used to our meeting starting at 7, so it had to be after 7 already. My goodness, we haven't even got to 7.
And as the secretary for the meeting and also the fill-in attorney, since we don't have one of those here, even though we don't have any attendees still, I think we should still proceed
Oh, yeah.
just so that there's no procedural error.
Yep. I was gonna move there. We'll go into the public testimony part right now. They'll be in 3 parts. We will first call for testimony from people who are in favor of the proposal. And then we will give opportunity for anybody in the public who is against the proposal. And finally, we'll have opportunity for just neutral testimony, that people who may just have comments or questions that are neither for it or against it. So with that, we will open the floor to anybody who is in the room or on the air or on the phone who is in favor of the proposal to speak now. And the way you speak is, if you're on Zoom, you click the raise hand icon and wait to be recognized. If you're here on the telephone, it is *9 to raise your hand. So anybody want to speak in favor of the proposal?
You still have no attendees.
Okay. We will move quickly on to those who may be opposed to the proposal.
Again, no attendees.
Yeah, who may have just jumped into the room. And that would probably mean that we don't have anybody who has a neutral testimony tonight, but we do give opportunity in case they're hiding in the cracks.
That is correct. No, nobody with their hand raised.
Okay. Shelley, we go to staff recap if you have anything to add.
I just like projects like this because they're just very cut and dry, have an obvious answer, an obvious recommendation of approval. So that's where we are.
Okay. And we will give the applicant opportunity to rebut anything that's been said.
I would not want to rebut anything, but I will tell you what I already told Kelly, which is that staff has been a real pleasure to work with. They've been really helpful and really patient. And I know that there is sometimes an adversarial relationship between somebody trying to accomplish something and staff. Didn't see a sign of that this time. They were really helpful and really easy to work with.
Thank you. Well, we can move to discussion or we can close it. If anybody wants to close it, I don't think we need to keep much open to talk to the applicant.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay.
Looking
I'll
for,
second it.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing at 6:55. All right, discussion. As Shelley said, it's kind of a fairly straightforward, very straightforward. It's kind of refreshing, isn't it?
Well, Chair, I do got a question. I don't want to bring bad karma to our meetings, but it's just a question for clarity, because I'm a stickler when it comes to following the code. When I look at 1766-70, which is type 2, type 3 variance criteria, the first bullet point says the circumstances necessitating the variance are not of the applicant's making. Now, that was not read when Shelley, you gave your report, and it doesn't say that that has to be a part of it or not, but clearly this is something that the applicant's requesting to do. So is that something that I have to enforce, or something that I don't have to? It's just a suggestion, because I'm reading it as a like a commandment to me to make sure that this is not it. Help explain that one too.
Sure. So So it gets this is where like semantics get really obnoxious. So there are type 2 and type 3 variances, and then there's a type 3 special variance. So let me hold on. I'm looking at the code right now.
Yeah, that's for a type 2 variance.
Yeah.
So when Mr. Leslie came before us, he asked, you know, if I want to put my pole barn in this location, how can I accomplish that? And I think we laid out, and I could be wrong, but I think we laid out the type 2 or type 3 process. The problem with the type 2 process is there's two criterion, such as is it of the applicant's making, and there's a couple other ones that they're just very difficult to meet. And I think they're intended to be that way, but it doesn't give any grace or any ability for staff to work with the applicant. So that's why we recommended, in this case, a type 3 variance procedure.
All
And so-
right, well, I appreciate I appreciate that. And again, I want to just clarify, I'm not opposing this. I'm for it. It's the house that's well off the street. It's not going to be seen. It's going to be covered. I have no issues with it whatsoever. I'm just looking at the code saying, is the code relative, or is that something in the code that we need to address in the future to help augment that? Because it's clear to me that this seems more of something that the applicant is choosing to do, and it would be a type 2, and in this case it says type 2 and type 3 variance. It's not a special variance, but that's what it felt like to me when I heard it. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I think the difference, I'm not looking at the code right now, but I think the difference is a type 2 is only applicable for individual lots, and a type 3 is applicable for like subdivisions and larger applications. And then a type 3 special variance has its own approval criterion altogether that don't have like the applicant's making part.
I understand what Chris is saying. I guess I'd throw out a thought. Let's just say if we're type 2 variance, I think that actually it's not of the applicant's making. The reason I say that is the purpose of that, Chris, is that you know, the code is written kind of in general, but you try to lay it on a piece of land, sometimes it doesn't fit, right?
Right.
And so that's the point. It's not of the applicant's making. In other words, the land is a little different. So in this case, I look at it as based upon where his house sits and where the road sits, that it's one of those unique things that normally in a standard neighborhood, let's just take a standard neighborhood like you and I live in. Yeah, the accessory is behind, you know, you don't put an accessory building in your front yard. I mean, that's the simple part. But, you know, he's more in a rural setting. He's got a lot of area there. And based on where his house sits, there's no place to put it. So he's putting it at the most logical place he can. So personally, I could make the case if it were type 2, that it is not of the applicant's making, is because of the physical site, the way the physical site is and where the house is and the way the code is written. So that's kind of the point is that it's more stringent because it's of the site. It's a site issue. It's just not because the person says, hey, I want to put a barn in my front yard. Is that okay?
And I appreciate this isn't about this applicant and his pole barn. I'm all for that. I'm looking at the code, trying to, anytime I see an opportunity to make it better for us and easier and clear for us, that we do point it out, at least on the record. And for me, I'm just a little confused between, when I look at the language of type 2, type 3 versus special, this could be, in my eyes, an either or. And clearly we moved it as a special because it's a little easier to get by. And that's great because of the vantage point that he has, or the disadvantage that he has because of his home location on his lot. But and for future, I don't want to be in that quandary again, questioning which side of it falls on. So I'll be quiet now.
Well, unfortunately, Chris, you probably will be in that quandary again, because given the time I spent on the commission, that always comes up.
We also go off of precedent of how we've interpreted the code in the past. So situations like this, we've applied a type 3 special variance.
The only thing I would say, I understand what Shelley's saying. Kelly's reminded us many times that every application stands on its own.
Yeah.
And so I've always been very leery of precedent, because that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, just before I see that Commissioner Hook has his hand up, and I don't want to bogart the time here, but I did look up the code just to give clarity, and it does say when we're talking about the more traditional variance procedure, it says a type 2 is reserved for major adjustments on individual lots. So it's consistent with what I just told you. While variances to development standards proposed as part of a land division or process is a type 3 application. So, and that's the more traditional variance procedure. Then if you go down to in 176660, then if you go down to 176680, that's where it lays out the special variance procedures. And that is always the case that it goes before planning commission. So.
Commissioner Hook, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I brought up this before on a previous hearing, and our city attorney helped clarify that Sandy does have this special variance language, which not all cities have, which allow for us to be able to basically take that portion out for the undue hardship and other things. And so that was a little bit new for me as well. But yeah, definitely different.
Any other comments, questions, observations? If not, somebody can craft a motion.
Well, I'll take a quick stab at it. I move that we approve file number 21005 VAR with the conditions of approval as documented by staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve file 21-005 with the conditions in the staff report. We'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Carlton,
Yes.
Commissioner Lasowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Hook,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayton,
Yes.
Chairman Crosby.
Yes. Motion carries. Let me get back and find my agenda here.
Record quick meeting.
Yeah, next thing on the agenda is adjournment, and it's 7:04.
Get to that Blazer game.
Yeah, I saw they're gonna, I saw on the news today, they're gonna open it up with some fully vaccinated sections, allowing them to quadruple the size of the number of people there. So I'm glad to see them really focused towards opening and encouraging people to get vaccinated as opposed to all the negative parts. And I'm sure Ron would vote for that. He's had more gray hairs than he used to have.
So Kelly, what conditions is the city setting up for when they might reopen on any of the hearings?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, I meant to cover that in my director's report, and then the passing of Miss Donnelly actually had me not even thinking about that at all. Yeah, so that is a good question. I think, and Counselor Sheldon could answer this probably better than me, but I think they're going to go back to a hybrid model of some in person and some by Zoom on June 21st, I believe.
Yeah, that's what was put out at the last council meeting, June 21st, and hybrid, so that both commissioners, council members, as well as the public have the option to appear in person or via Zoom.
And then, so for the commission, what that means is that I'm going to kind of poll everybody and see what everybody wants to do. And Jordan wants to give it about 3 months before other boards and commissions start meeting, only because there's a lot to work out. And Jeff Aprati, the city recorder, and Greg Brewster, the SandyNet IT manager director, they're going to be working through all that. But we want to give like 5 or 6 meetings working through all the kinks before the other boards and commissions start doing it as well. So I'm thinking maybe like September-ish. But again, I'll be putting out a poll and kind of asking you some more questions and seeing who actually wants to meet in person as opposed to continuing on Zoom, so that I kind of get a sense where we're going. And I'll be talking to Chairman Crosby more about that as well.
I'm on the county budget committee and we're meeting in person the next 3 days, which kind of surprised me. People can also come in by Zoom, but they were telling us that in a hybrid meeting, you really don't have much of a role if you're on Zoom. So I was kind of discouraged about hybrid meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for meeting in person as soon as basically we can. We have, new people on this group, then you have a chance to meet, and start to form physical relationships. I know the only thing I would say, Kelly, is there's some occupancy things. If we have some topic that's going to fill the room, which we've had a few in the past, then the issue isn't with the commission. The issue is with how many people the public is there. So I mean, I think when I think of a hybrid, I think of potentially the commission, staff, attorney, all of that meeting in person, and then public testimony be through Zoom. If you're concerned about the number of people that could be in chambers.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the concerns. And one of the reasons why I'm concerned about it is typically the council meetings has an officer in arms, so they'll have a cap or a limitation. And if people get frustrated or angry, they have somebody that helps with that. So far at Planning Commission, we've never had that. So I don't know if that's something we'll have to introduce. So, but very good comment and something we'll definitely be taking into consideration.
Kelly, I'm on the fire district board as well, and we've been meeting with the hybrid for the last 3 months. And so the option of being there or out, and it's pretty flawless. I mean, we've had no problems with it, and the public has had to come in via Zoom though on that, but it works.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Any other comments?
Other than
I guess I'll add since I work in a state agency, we're still meeting exclusively virtually for our public meetings, but our internal meetings can be either or. Of course, all masks are required at all of them still, even with the new vaccination orders. So in the state buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I had an in-person meeting today. We were looking at property sites, and we were traveling, and we were wearing masks, but we drove in individual cars. We had a caravan of cars, about 9 of us, traveling around different counties. So
I can let you know about that. City Hall right now is open to the public, as you all know, since early April. For both staff members and the public, which would include commissioners, is the two options are to wear a mask or to show proof of vaccination. So, and I think that's pretty consistent with pretty much everywhere around the state right now. So, and that could change by the time we meet, but I'm just telling you right now that would be what we would do, is either you could show proof of vaccination, and 2 weeks after that, then you wouldn't have to wear a mask to come into the commission meetings, or you could just continue to wear the mask. So.
Mm-hmm. Different times.
So it would if we were to hold meetings in person, so the same rules would apply to the public attending?
The same rules apply to anybody that comes into a public building.
Right. So
if I'm vaccinated, well, I just got my second vaccine on Saturday, but if I chose not to get vaccinated, that's fine. But I then have to wear a mask the entire time I'm in the building.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, based on that rule, to me, that pretty much makes the decision that if we meet, that there needs to be a sergeant of arms. We need to have the same security that they have at council meetings.
Yeah, it would seem that way.
Well, I would vote for that, Richard. We've had some, I mean, council has some exciting meetings, but planning commission has been a no holds barred sport the last year or so.
June 7th, I think would be a great opportunity. I mean, I bring it up. I'm happy to bring it up before then, but I think June 7th is a prime opportunity to bring that up and discuss that. I personally don't see resistance against that, but I'm not sure how other people feel about that. But I think that's the perfect opportunity to bring it up and start talking about it, plus give some time for planning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really, because you can tell, I'm excited about us trying to figure out a way to move forward. You know, within probably 2 weeks, there's probably a very chance the state will be at 70%. And, you know, they're going to go low and all that. So that's just a new environment. And so I like to see if we can move forward as soon as possible.
Mhm. Kelly, remind us of the June 7 meeting. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be there. I'm in Alaska, but just as we wrap up, remind us of that one.
Yeah, it starts at 6 p.m. Via Zoom. Again, the council's not going to in the hybrid until June 21st. So that, I believe that will be the last council meeting that is not a hybrid model. So it's June 7th at 6 p.m. You should get an invitation from Jeff Aprati to be a panelist at that meeting. And the meeting will primarily cover a work session on the Parks Master Plan. And then also we'll cover municipal code priorities and what council and planning commission want to see, get some consensus around things like plan developments and how to move forward on some of these different ideas or proposals. And then also, like Council Liaison Sheldon said, it would be a great opportunity if you have other questions about the hybrid model or anything like that, you know, to voice those concerns or opinions at that meeting. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Have you got good response on your survey, or you need to prod folks to complete that?
Mixed response, but it's okay. I think I have enough to go forward, and I'm going to be putting a staff report together for June 7th that will kind of explain the different processes. So for example, I'll just give you a primer. I'm going to kind of outline the amount of time it takes for code changes. They're typically like a 3 to 4 month process because you have to notify DLCD at least 35 days prior. Most of the time, Planning Commission is asked for work sessions on code changes, so that adds another meeting, plus then at least 2 hearings between Planning Commission and City Council. And then we also have to get attorney review both on the code and the ordinance that gets adopted by City Council. So there is some timeline there. The other thing I will be explaining is that to do something like plan developments, if the majority decides that we would like to see those removed from the code right now or something along those lines, that would actually also take or necessitate what's called a Measure 56 notice. And in Oregon, I'll explain this more on June 7th, but in Oregon, whenever you remove a use type from any zoning district, you have to notice everybody in that zoning district. Unfortunately, the plan development says it's applicable in all zones. So that means we'll have to send notice to every single property owner within the city of Sandy. And then there's statutory requirements for how long they have to respond to that. So unfortunately, we're looking at a Measure 56 notice for if we did decide we want to remove PDs. So I will be asking the question of, is there any other uses you'd like to propose to remove if we decide to go forward with that? Because I would love to get them all captured in one Measure 56 notice because they are pretty expensive to put together and proceed with.
Can you stuff that in utility bill? Save postage?
I think you probably could, yeah. I think you probably could.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that, you said it's a workshop with council. Does that take I know sometimes we've had workshops that start at 6 and they end at 7 because then council has their regular meeting. Sounds like what you've just described is far longer than a couple, so it goes into the regular meeting time. Okay.
They have 2 hours scheduled for the joint work session from 6 to 8.
Okay, good.
But yes, because we think the Parks Master Plan will be about an hour, and then the rest of the discussion will be probably about an hour. And Commissioner Carlton, I'll have to look into that. I probably shouldn't state it could be stuffed with the utility bill because I think there's actually some requirements that it can't be. So, but I'll look into that. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we had a parade, we could just hand it out to everybody on the street.
That's
Throw it
right.
out like candy.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn. I got my microphone on.
I'll second.
Been moved to and seconded to adjourn at 7. Now it's after 7:16. All in favor, say aye,
Aye.
or thumbs up, or whatever. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. That it goes on the record books.